Welcome back. Today on Focus Africa, we take a look at Africa's response to the Israel-Palestine war as it reflects a complex interplay or historical solidarity, geopolitical interest, and economic stakes. Many African nations continue to align with the Palestinian cause, rooted in shared anti-colonial experiences. This posture often challenges Israel's diplomatic outreach, despite its growing economic ties across the continent. At the AU's recent summit in Addis Ababa, leaders collectively condemned Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide and emphasized African unity behind the two-state solution. Beyond moral alignment, Africa stands as real diplomatic and economic weight. The continent must balance its relations with Israel, particularly on technology, agriculture, and security partnerships against its solidarity with Palestine.
Now, very interesting stakes here, and that is why we have with us our very special guest who's going to be discussing this with us. We have joining us this morning Mustapha Bulama. He's an editorial cartoonist and also journalist. You might have seen some of his work here being displayed on our strips, which we'll be doing tomorrow. Bulama, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us. Now, you've chronicled the Israel...
Thank you for having me.
Yes, finally. You've chronicled very well the Israeli-Palestine war, as well as other issues. But I'm wondering exactly what your take is on how the African leaders or African countries are aligning in this broad interplay of diplomacy and need. What's your take?
Yeah, I think I would like to start with maybe the quote of Nelson Mandela. He said, we know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. I feel since Africa have experienced colonialism, we know the impact of colonialism. We're still facing the impact of colonialism. I think this should be something really clear, especially to Africa, that we know where we stand. We align with the Palestinians in actually getting their freedom. And it's not just an issue of foreign policy, but an issue of moral consistency. As a continent, we've suffered, like I said, under colonialism and apartheid, and we cannot ignore when Palestinians face the same kind of disposition and oppression. So I feel African countries need to really come together, speak with one voice, and remain consistent in their demand for the freedom of Palestinians and maybe the two-state solution or whatever solution. But then the Palestinians need to have their own freedom.
So Mustapha, for me, I would like to ask that do you think African citizens see this conflict as distant, or do they feel its direct impact in terms of economics and solidarity?
Well, a lot of Africans may feel it's a bit distant to them, maybe because we face a lot of problems of our own in Africa, but in reality, it is also something that is that will really affect us either now or in the future. Because you see, in Africa, just take, for example, what is happening right now in Palestine. There is no African country that will, carry out such violation of international law and just get away with it. Before you know what's happening, the Western countries will send maybe military interventions, or they will send sanctions and so on. Even in Nigeria, for example, if we take Nigeria, for example, during the Buhari administration, we tried to buy some weapons from the United States, and the United States Congress blocked this transaction, this purchase of weapons, based on what? They said Nigeria's human rights record. But you can imagine a country that is talking about the human rights records of Nigeria is still supporting a country, giving the country weapons and bombs and all of that to kill innocent civilians. We're seeing how babies, women, children, journalists, paramedics being killed. It's so as Africa, I think the African continent need to understand this, that it is not going to be accepted anywhere in the world for Africa to do such a thing. And by leaving it like this, or remain silent, or not being clear about where we stand, again, it creates something for us in the future, where you may have a situation where other maybe despotic rulers or something, dictators, may decide to also do the same thing, and you don't have anything to say.
Okay. Now, real quick, we only have about a minute, but I'm wondering how you empathize with the African countries, noting that they have to, if they do, have to take sides with either this or that, and that has further implications with further alliances with these countries. For instance, the US and the tariffs that it's handing out to people or countries that do not seem to align with its own thoughts. How do you empathize with African countries then?
Yeah, I think the African countries need to come together, really. If African countries can come together and unite and actually take a stand, then you have a voice, and then you also be able to push your own agenda, in the international affairs. Is the United States going to sanction all African countries? Let's even assume it does. Then what about other nations in the world? Africa can trade with other nations. Africa can trade with itself, countries in Africa and all of that. But we need to find a way. We shouldn't be seen being complicit. We shouldn't be seen hobnobbing with a country that is violating international law and international human rights. So there has to be this balancing sort of how we approach some of these things. Africa could also can also impose sanctions. Africa can determine what kind of trade or what kind of relationship it's going to have with the Israelis until they stop what they are doing.
All right, then, Mustapha Bulama, we want to say thank you very much for joining us to discuss this on Focus Africa here inside of Breakfast Extra. It's been a long time coming. We've been expecting to see you, but we hoped that you were going to join on for strips, but here you are on Focus Africa. So I'm inviting you over, perhaps maybe on tomorrow's show. Would like to analyze the cartoons together. Maybe some of them might be yours. Please say yes.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you very much. There you heard it. He can't get out of this one. Thank you, Bulama. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.